Hey everybody, and thanks for watching Woodcrest Bonsai. Today I'm going to work on these 5 Parrot's Beak. I put all of these trees in bonsai pots all at the same time. I've worked all 5 in the same videos, so I'm going to do the same today. Although I'm thinking of the one on the very right needs to go back into training and get a little bit bigger and have a little more pizzazz to it. The other 4 I think are okay. 2 I really like a lot, and I will feature these individually as I start to work on them. And they're all going to get a repotting because they are profoundly root bound, and they also reacted to the cold I have to admit, based on my laziness, I didn't do any cold protection on any of my tropical trees this year because it never got close to freezing. But we got into the 30s numerous times, and these trees just said, you know what, I'm just going to drop my leaves. That and the combination of being root bound and winter, and all 5 of them are now resprouting. So it's definitely time to give them a little bit of extra styling and then root prune, and I will probably put them all in the same pot. So we're going to get started. I will focus on individual trees and then we'll work on each tree as we go. So here's tree number 1. This is probably my favorite of them all. It has exactly the kind of taper and movement and branching that I really like in a bonsai. And so I'm really happy with this tree. And it does have some things, like you're going to take off this little tiny piece here, and shorten up this branch. The first main branch is actually 3, but for now I don't think that's that big of an issue. Although we do have some growth right here that I'm going to shorten, and some more growth here that I'm going to shorten. The back branch could use a little development. We got a couple little front branches here, but I don't think that's a problem either. And then really, I don't think I'm going to even do any wiring on this guy. I just really like the way it moves. Oh no, I'm going to sing. I like the way you move. Okay. Enough of that. And so I really think I'm just going to root prune it and repot it. There's just not that much more to do on this guy. I just love the way it moves. If we look like this, it's a little bit straight up and down. The apex could come towards us a little better. But all in all, it's the kind of tree that I just really like. So I'm going to root prune it and repot it. And all 5 of these are small enough where I can probably just remove. Oh, look how nice and white the bottom roots are. So the tree is very healthy. I can probably just remove it with my fingers. And as is typical with trees this small, I use window screen as the mesh to keep soil from going through the drain hole. And I will continue to use that same window screen if it's intact. And Parrot's Beak is one of those, well, a lot of tropical trees do this, but it's one of those that is a very aggressive rooter. So it will send roots out even from the bottom of the pot. And I've actually had them grow into old benches, which is pretty wild when you think about it. Okay, so I want to soften up the edges, and then we're going to look at the roots here and give it a little bit of a trimming. And I think that looks about good. And the Nabari is a little bit funky, but you know what? I'm not worried about that. There we go. Get rid of the old stuff. The window mesh is still perfectly usable, so it goes back in the bottom of the pot. And then a little bit of soil. And this is my very gravelly bonsai mix, which is what it was in to begin with. And we're going to put them in there like that. Really not much modification of the angle of the tree or anything like that, really. So the combination of some nice new soil and the fact that we're warming up nicely, although we have had a little cold spell. Oops, I forgot my chopstick. I can do it with the tips of my scissors. Multi-purpose tool. Quit moving around. And normally I don't wire my trees in because I don't like to do that. And these guys are so small, and they're in a fairly protected area of the bench that I really don't think it's going to be all that necessary. Alright, so there we go. There's number one. Number two is another very nice tree that I like a lot, although it's leaning a little bit. If we go like this, it's leaning way too far forward. So when I root prune it and repot it, I will change the position of the tree, something more like that. And as you can see, it's got a whole bunch of new growth popping. It's got the perfect kind of branch placement that I like out of the outsides of the curve and a decent apex. And I may just do a little tiny bit of trimming. See, there's kind of like this knob here. So cut that knob away. Maybe this is also kind of knobby, so shorten that. And also has nice healthy roots, even though it's pretty peaked looking. And the window screen is also intact. And I suppose I could clean the pot, you know, go. Oh, look at this pot. This pot cracked. And I put it together with, I do believe, liquid nails. It's missing one piece there. There's another part of the crack. So this whole pot shattered, and I was able to find all the pieces and put it back together. So where's the front of this guy? I think this is the front. That one crack is... Okay, so I'm going to go do that. I'm just going to dunk the pot into some water. Sometimes I don't think it's all that necessary, but I'm going to do it anyway. So now you can really see the suture lines in the pot. Cracked into quite a few pieces, but I was able to find them all and glue it back together. So then the window mesh goes in there and give this guy a little bit of a root prune. And I may just go a little bit around the perimeter. So there we go. Chop some of this. Get rid of the old stuff. And it's pretty much the same procedure. Although once again, this time I'm going to change the angle of this tree. So I've actually brought soil at an angle in the pot. So it's, if we take the pot like this, the soil is angling like that. I don't know how well you can see that. But that'll make it easier for me to put the tree at the new angle that I want. which I think that looks just about perfect. As the small plane flies overhead. I'm cognizant of it a lot, but it may be something that just is part of the video that you don't really even pay much attention to. But I have a small executive airport where like Piper Cubs and those kind of planes take off just a few miles from where I live, so they're always flying overhead. All right, there's number 2, and once again, just really nice movement and some taper. And these are still young trees, but I really love the way these first 2 are developing. Number 3, if I'm not mistaken. I know it was one of them. And was it this one or was it the other? God, now I don't even know. But one of these I was developing a cute little mame tree. And the hailstorm of April 28, 2023 bashed the entire mame part off. I had a whole bunch of sacrifice branches. I think it may be number 4. So anyway, so this tree is okay. It's more of a slanting trunk. It's got these 2 really low limbs that really don't have much to do with the design. Although I may leave this guy as a sacrifice. And sacrifice branches really work best when the tree is in training. Once you put it in a bonsai pot, a sacrifice branch really doesn't do all that much for thickening of the trunk. But it's there, so I'm going to keep it. Looks like this piece is dead because it's brown instead of tan. And then it's, I suppose in a perfect world you'd want a balancing branch for the very slanting style that it is. And it's kind of interesting because the apex comes from here, and then this part of the branch continues on to form the back branch, which is a little interesting. I don't know if you can see that. There you go. And I think this guy could probably be a little better with that as the front. So, and once this guy begins to sprout out, I may actually do that. You see, just putting some wire on this guy to make it more of a balancing branch will balance the whole design out. And this looks dead. And there's perhaps another little chunks. I should probably see this growth right here. That's going to come out almost horizontal, or maybe even a little down. That is really what I want. This first main branch right now is okay, but I'm going to take it to there so that it fills in here, and I'll have more ramification, and I'll have a better branch right there. And this tree has some very interesting roots. Kind of a strange, gnarly, knobby thing. So, the first order of business is to recover the window screen. Empty the pot out of the old bonsai soil. And I suppose I'll go clean this one out too, since I'm on that trajectory. Nice clean pot. Put the window screen back in there. And we've also got some circling roots. So this big root right here comes and then it circles back. So I don't want that. So I'm going to take all that stuff off there. And and then we have this big knob here that I'm going to just shave like that. So sometimes even when you're feathering the roots out, when they're little. And this root also circles tremendously. So we're just going to take it off too. These are Parrot's Beak, and they root from cuttings very readily, and I find that that means that you can also root prune them quite severely, and they will respond quite nicely. Okay. Give it a little bit of soil. Oops. That was maybe too much. And then I'm going to change the angle and the front about like that. Okay. So that looks pretty good. So if we imagine this guy as the balancing branch, then we have that as the first main branch, second main branch, back branch, apex into here, and it'll be a slanting style. Okay. There's number 3. And if I'm not mistaken, this was the one that I was growing as a mame. And it was all out here. Had a cute little mame tree, and this was basically just a sacrifice branch to get everything thicker. But once the hail knocked off, it knocked the whole thing, the whole little tree, just whacked it. So then I've grown it, and this has thickened considerably. So now we have, this is an interesting tree, kind of a funky style. And if we look at it this way, it goes way back, unless this is the front. But then we have these 2 huge scars there that I really don't like. So I think I'm going to still make this the front. But as with the other one, I'll give it a little bit different angle when I plant it. And there's still some decision making. Do I want this as the apex, or do I want this as the apex? You know, how much of this little stuff here am I going to keep? So there's always the future. If I'm not really sure what I want to do, then I just don't do anything. Let it grow, let the plant develop, and then a lot of times you'll see, okay, there it is. That's what I want. So just a lot of times trees that are not, where you really want them, like the first 2 were almost just perfect. You can always just wait. Got some nice moss. And I never really promote moss. This also has a circling root right there. So we're going to chop him out of there and cut the roots off the bottom. And I don't think it really needs too much cut around the edges. So there we go. So I'm going to plant it something like that. So something in there like that. And as it develops, who knows, I may wire it up and bring something like this. Right now I just want to get them back growing. And I suppose if I had to do it again, I would have created some kind of little plastic greenhouse and put all my really, really tropical trees in there. I know I used to deal with a wholesale grower who grew all kind of tender trees and plants, a lot of even flowers. And he put plastic up on his greenhouses from the middle of November to the middle of March, because those are the record earliest freeze ever for this area and the record latest freeze. And so when you're in business making money selling those plants, you just don't want to wing and say, I'll put the plastic up later. You put the plastic up to contend with the possible record cold. And then what he would do is when it did get really cold, he would run huge kerosene heaters, drop all the plastic to the ground, and use huge kerosene heaters to heat the greenhouses during the cold spell. But then, like we had just recently here, we had a very cold January, and then the second weekend of February, not weekend, week, it got into the mid-80s. And so then having that plastic like that can cook everything. So he had certain panels that he would roll up and then attach to the top of the greenhouse to provide air circulation. So I suppose I could do something similar to that, but oh no, am I going to admit it? I'm too lazy. And these guys are all perfectly alive. They just drop their leaves. And if you subscribe, or you're already subscribed, and you've hit the notification bell, then the next time I give these guys an update, you'll see that even in a month or so, they're going to be just sprouted out like crazy, growing beautifully. So there's number 4. And now we come to number 5, and this tree does nothing for me. It just doesn't. And sometimes you wonder, after a certain period of time, why did I put this into a bonsai pot in the first place? But there it is, in the pot, and it's just got nothing going on. The main trunk is so incredibly straight, and there's some branching, but I just don't like it. And I really think what needs to happen is it needs to develop considerably. And the only way you really get basically any species to really develop more than you want is to take it out of the bonsai pot and put it back into training. So that's what I'm going to do with this guy. I'm not even going to go through the root pruning and repotting process on camera because it just needs to go into a much bigger pot, probably back into an organic mix, and then just let it take off, and who knows where it's going to go. I mean, I'm looking at what are the potential for this tree? Well, we could take the whole thing off right there and grow a tree from this. Or we could take all of this off and grow a tree up into here. Maybe even make it a little less angled and do a more upright tree. There's a lot of potential, but right now it's really just not going to develop much in this bonsai pot. It needs either a much, much bigger pot, and I have some right here, but I don't have the soil to do it. But, like a 6-inch bulb pan, or it's probably overkill, but it could conceivably go into an 8-inch bulb pan, which is quite large. But it needs something. In my opinion, it needs something. It needs to be given more space and more time. So there's an 8-inch bulb pan, so that's a pretty big jump. And a 6-inch bulb pan, which is still a considerable, and this could just be the start. Put it into the 6-inch bulb pan, and then when it roots out and begins to develop, put it, step it up into the 8-inch bulb pan. Or maybe even put it in the ground. So that's number 5. I'm not really going to do anything with it today. And if you come across trees that you're like, I don't know, and they're in bonsai pots, I've learned that if you really need a lot more development, you've really got to take them back to training. and regrow them. And it's, yeah, I don't want to say it's unfortunate, but it's just part of the process. I really like the first two in this series. They were just beautiful. I just love the way they moved. The second two still had great potential as small bonsai. This guy, I just don't see it. So he's going to go back into training. So thank you so much for watching. If you like this video, please give me a thumbs up and subscribe if you haven't done so already. And when you hit the notification bell, I'm trying to do all 5 of these guys simultaneously, although I think this number 5 is going to be taken out of the rotation as far as being trimmed as a bonsai. And I may, depending on where it goes, I may still add it so you can just see, how much it's developing after it has been given a bigger pot and a chance to just grow more. So that's it for this video. Thank you so much for watching, and leave a comment. If you can keep Parrot's beak from getting really, really cold, they make great bonsai. They take a lot of work because in the growing season, they grow like, well, they breed like rabbits. Of course. Why did I say that? I don't know. But they grow very fast. And so they take a lot of work as far as trimming. You need to stay on them. In a month, after these guys have sprouted and I do nothing, they could have growth, out to here. But other than that, they're fantastic bonsai. So thanks for watching, and I will see you in the next video.